Okay, we're now over in Pro Tools, and I brought up their most basic EQ. Well, it's not the most basic EQ, they have a one band as well. But this is kind of the go-to EQ that you find in Pro Tools unless you spend a lot of money purchasing third-party EQ plugins. And it's almost like we've just tilted the EQ that we saw in Reason on its side here. We have our low and our highs. They're both shelving. Remember, you could put your books up on the shelf there in either boosting or cutting. And I'll just reset that with option clicking. And then we'll do the same thing with the top end. It's a shelving EQ, and then you can then go across into the mids here, and then you can basically do the same things we did before. Adjust the bandwidth or the Q so that you're only just basically dealing with the frequencies you have dialed in right here, and you can sweep that around. Or else you can widen that up and then adjust either in boosting or cutting those particular frequencies right there. So again, you just have the Q, the boost or cut, and then where you were going to sweep around there. And in the case of the Reason EQ, we had a low shelf and high shelf, and I think there were two in between. You have three in between here. So this is called a 7-band. Why is it called a 7-band? Well, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands here. Well, you actually have a couple of filters up here, which are still parts of EQ. Let me just zero this back out again. They're still EQ, but what they do is actually a little bit different. Let me turn the high pass filter in here, and some people call it a low roll off. It's basically what it does is it passes the highs and it slopes down and rolls off the lows. Now, how steep that low, that kind of corner is there is set up right over here, 6 dB per octave. In other words, every octave you go, it drops down 6 dB. Another octave, it'll go down another 6 dB, and so on. You can make that a little sharper, 12 dB, 18, right up to 24, and you can see that's a very big drop off. And then you can scoot that around so that you're just, for example, a typical place you might put that for a male vocal is around 80 or 100 hertz, because the fundamentals of most male voices, unless you're Barry White, is around 100 hertz, and we'll look in that a little bit later on. So I'll just pop that out, and the inverse is the same over here. This is a low pass filter or a high roll off. You could say that. We can adjust how steep that curve is, and then where you're going to actually start lopping off those high frequencies.